Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. When you think about global innovation powerhouses, what nations come to mind? Perhaps the U.S. or China, maybe some of the East Asian tigers? But what about Britain? Could it be that the U.K. is surprisingly good at innovation, even amidst, well, all the common talk of economic gloom and headlines that often suggest otherwise? Today we're going to explore that very question. While the popular narrative might paint a picture of decline for Britain, there's actually a surprising counter-narrative, one of significant strengths, especially in some truly cutting-edge fields. We'll look at both the real assets Britain possesses and, some of the systemic challenges it faces in turning those sparks of genius into fully fledged world-leading industries. Our aim is to understand not just what Britain is good at, but why, and maybe more importantly, how it can truly capitalize on these strengths. Okay, let's unpack this. The common perception of Britain might indeed be one of struggle, with headlines sometimes, fueling that.
You might hear rumors, for instance, of a giant like AstraZeneca considering a New York listing, and that certainly adds to a narrative of waning confidence. But the picture, as we often find, is far more nuanced, isn't it? What's truly fascinating is that despite these gloomy headlines, Britain is still a place where new ideas don't just spark, they really seem to ignite.
That's absolutely right. When you strip away the immediate headlines and look at the foundational strengths, they're quite remarkable, actually. Britain is home to 4 of the world's top universities, according to the QS 2025 global ranking. Imperial at number 2, Oxford at 3, Cambridge at 5, and UCL at 9. That's an extraordinary concentration of academic excellence for a country of its size.
4 in the top 10. That's significant.
It really is. And what's maybe even more compelling is that the World Intellectual Property Organization's Global Innovation Index specifically names Cambridge as the densest innovation cluster on Earth.
The densest, even more than Silicon Valley.
Measured by innovation activity per square mile, yes, ahead of Silicon Valley. And this isn't just about academic prowess, or what some might call ivory tower research. This academic strength translates directly into commercial activity. The UK also boasts Europe's largest venture capital market by invested dollars.
Okay, so the money is there, at least early on.
Exactly. Significant early-stage funding. And the proof is in the pudding. Britain has created a staggering 178 unicorns this century.
Wow, 178. Just to remind folks, a unicorn is a private startup valued over $1 billion, right?
Correct. And creating more than France, Germany, and Switzerland combined really underscores a potent capacity for early-stage innovation and investment. These aren't just abstract numbers. They signal a robust, fertile ground for creating the next generation of disruptive companies.
That truly paints a different picture than the common narrative, doesn't it? It seems there's a real engine of innovation at work, sort of humming beneath the surface.
Yeah.
So where specifically are these strengths manifesting? Let's look at some of these unexpected areas of British prowess. It's not just about the big picture numbers. It's about what's actually being built and pioneered in specific industries.
Absolutely. Take advanced manufacturing, for instance. While Britain's overall global share of manufacturing has declined over decades, specific firms in niche areas continue to lead globally. Rolls-Royce is a prime example. They've long been a leader in jet engines, particularly for wide-bodied planes.
Right, the big ones.
Exactly. And they're flying high with their ultrafan technology. This isn't just a slight improvement, it's a geared turbofan, meaning it uses a gearbox to allow different parts of the engine to spin at optimal speeds, making it far more fuel efficient.
Okay, so more efficient.
Much more. It incorporates cutting-edge materials like carbon fiber blades, ceramic composites, even 3D printed parts. What's ambitious here is their aim to re-enter the much larger market for single-aisle aircraft, hoping to power smaller jets more efficiently.
So moving into the market where, the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320 families dominate, that's a big move.
A very big move. And it's not just established giants. Britain also leads in making the very materials of the future. Remember back in 2010, 2 scientists at the University of Manchester won the Nobel Prize in chemistry for discovering graphene.
Graphene, right? The super thin, super strong carbon stuff.
That's the one. Only 1 atom thick. This incredible nanomaterial could soon be used in advanced applications like, say, high-altitude balloons to launch satellites. Then there's SpaceForge, a Welsh startup backed by NATO's Innovation Fund.
NATO's funding space manufacturing. Interesting.
Yeah. They aim to manufacture semiconductors in orbit. They theorize that the low gravity and cold temperatures of space make it ideal for producing incredibly pure chips, potentially unlocking entirely new levels of performance.
Manufacturing chips in space. Okay, that's definitely ambitious.
It isn't science fiction. They're actively working on making this a commercial reality.
It's genuinely fascinating to see that kind of ambition, from next-gen jet engines to manufacturing in orbit. And that sort of cutting-edge spirit seems to extend into areas like life sciences and artificial intelligence, AI, which are, well, increasingly intertwined. How is Britain positioned there?
Life sciences are another undeniable area of strength. Two of the world's top pharmaceutical firms are British, GSK and AstraZeneca. While GSK perhaps led in innovation historically, AstraZeneca, which is currently the UK's largest listed company, is heavily investing in genomics, oncology, and critically, in applying AI to drug discovery.
AI and drug discovery, that seems key now.
It's becoming absolutely central. And Chris Gibson, the CEO of Recursion Pharmaceuticals, an American drug discovery firm, actually notes that Britain is well ahead of most of the US in training scientists who truly understand both biology and computation.
That combination. Biology and computation.
Exactly. That dual expertise is vital for the future of pharma, and he would know. Recursion recently merged with Exscientia, a British rival, and Exscientia, notably, was the first firm to bring AI-designed molecules into actual clinical trials. That's a huge step.
Wow, first in the world, from a British firm.
Yes. And perhaps the most significant recent biochemistry breakthrough, AlphaFold.
Ah, yes. DeepMind's protein folding AI. That was huge news.
Absolutely massive. It predicts the 3D structures of proteins with astonishing accuracy, developed by Demis Hassabis and John Jumper of DeepMind. They won half of a Nobel Prize in chemistry for it last year. And it's important to remember DeepMind was a British company founded in London until Google acquired it back in 2014.
Right, so the talent originates here, even if the company ends up elsewhere sometimes. Which leads us naturally to the third area, technology, particularly AI and machine learning. You mentioned DeepMind's British roots. What else is happening on that front, especially when some might suggest Britain can't really compete with the sheer scale of the US or China?
Well, while it's true Britain will likely never match the raw computing power of the US or China, it certainly has deep expertise in machine learning, and crucially, firms eager to deploy AI in truly innovative ways. Take Wave, for example, a startup near King's Cross in London. They recently raised over $1 billion.
$1 billion for an AI startup in London.
Yes, Europe's largest ever investment in a European AI firm. They focus on developing AI that learns human driving patterns for autonomous vehicles. It's a different approach, and it's attracting huge investment.
Interesting. Learning like humans rather than just rules and maps.
Precisely. We also see a fantastic spin-out culture thriving here. Many graduates from Palantir's London office, which employs about a quarter of their global staff, go on to found their own startups. Erendite is one such spin-out. They use AI as connective tissue between disparate defense systems.
Connective tissue, what does that mean in practice?
It means their AI helps different military technologies, say, radar systems, communication networks, weapon platforms, communicate and coordinate seamlessly, even if they weren't originally designed to work together. It's about creating a unified, smarter defense posture.
Okay, making different systems talk to each other effectively. That sounds important.
Very. And crucially, Britain is also learning to pair technology with its existing strengths and services. The proximity to London's financial district has obviously helped fintech firms like Revolut flourish.
Right, fintech's been a big success story.
Definitely. Using technology to disrupt traditional banking. And the UK's world-leading video game industry is another prime example, combining creativity with cutting-edge code, generating billions in revenue and employing thousands.
Okay, so a lot of genuine strengths there. Advanced manufacturing, materials, life sciences, AI, tech spinouts. But as we often discuss, the story is rarely quite as simple as it first appears. While Britain's strengths in these fields are absolutely real, maybe some of the framing around them can be a bit too, well, breezy, overlooking significant hurdles and underlying challenges. It's not enough to invent things, is it? You also have to scale them up, and that's where the picture gets more complicated.
That's a crucial point. For instance, that notion you sometimes hear that Britain will never have the compute to compete. Well, it needs a serious reevaluation. London is actually Europe's only data center market that currently exceeds 1 gigawatt of power capacity.
A gigawatt, that sounds like a lot of power for data centers.
It's an enormous amount. It showcases the scale of infrastructure needed for modern AI, and it's on track to reach about 2 gigawatts within a few years. There are also significant sovereign AI compute efforts underway, like the Isambard AI supercomputer and the UK AI research resource.
So the ambition is there for compute power.
The ambition and some of the infrastructure. The real bottleneck isn't necessarily a lack of ambition or even capital for the computers themselves. It's more about practical things, like getting grid connections sorted and obtaining planning permission quickly enough. Obgym and NISO's First Ready, First Connected reforms from 2025 are designed to address this, but we have to acknowledge that power constraints are still quite acute, particularly in London and the southeast.
So the pipes and the permits are the holdup, not the tech itself.
Largely, yes. The execution of these reforms will truly determine if AI-era compute can land and scale here. It's really a challenge of infrastructure, not intellect.
So it's not a definitive never, but more of a not yet perhaps, due to these infrastructure and regulatory hurdles. What about those impressive advanced manufacturing examples like Rolls-Royce's Ultrafan? Is that a guaranteed game changer for British industry?
Well, while Ultrafan certainly demonstrates world-class engineering and it's a brilliant piece of technology, re-entering that single-aisle market is currently termed an option, not a guaranteed outcome.
An option, not a certainty.
Exactly. It hinges entirely on new Airbus or Boeing platforms being launched and on hard commercial commitments being made to actually use that engine. So while the innovation is definitely there, the market reality, securing those massive orders is still a significant hurdle. It's a testament to innovation, yes, but not yet a done deal for large-scale market dominance in that specific segment.
Okay, noted. And in life sciences. You mentioned AstraZeneca flirting with a U.S. listing. What does that tell us?
Well, while we celebrate the British brains, and they are truly exceptional, as AlphaFold and the Oxford ecosystem show, the phrase sometimes used is that the balance sheets are American.
Balance sheets are American, meaning the big money comes from the U.S.
Essentially, yes. It refers to the significant problem of capital leakage. The constant signaling about AstraZeneca possibly looking at a U.S. listing, even if they haven't moved, highlights London's comparatively thin equity stack for late-stage funding compared to New York.
So good at starting companies, but maybe not so good at funding them when they get really big.
That's the crux of it. While British companies might thrive in early-stage venture capital, once they need hundreds of millions or even billions to really scale, think global clinical trials, building huge factories, the UK simply doesn't have the same depth of capital markets as the US, particularly New York. This capital leakage is a significant concern because Britain is brilliant at inventing, but it struggles to fund those inventions to full maturity and keep the resulting companies, and importantly their economic benefits, within its own borders.
Right. And on the venture capital front itself, while Britain's unicorn count is impressive, 178 you said,
Right.
Are unicorns themselves the ultimate metric of success when we're talking about building long-term industrial strength?
It's a good metric for early-stage strength, certainly. It shows a vibrant startup ecosystem, no doubt about that. However, relying solely on unicorn counts, well, it definitely masks a patient capital gap for the more capital-intensive sectors.
Patient capital, meaning money that's willing to wait longer for a return.
Exactly. We're talking about areas like advanced chip manufacturing fabs, complex energy hardware, biomanufacturing. These aren't software companies that can scale with relatively little capital. They need massive, sustained investment over long periods. Perhaps better scorecards for true industrial scale would include things like the UK's share of firms valued at over $10 billion decacorns, or the number of domestic IPOs in deep tech, rather than just private valuations.
Okay, so looking beyond just the billion-dollar mark.
Yes, and also measuring manufacturing final investment decisions, or FIDs. These are huge long-term commitments to actually building factories here. That would be a much clearer indicator of scaling an entire industry. Unicorns are great, but they don't tell the full story of true industrial growth.
Makes sense. And then this idea that maybe Britain just needs to think bigger. Is that too simplistic?
I think it is, yes. While mindset is certainly a factor, the real binding constraints seem to be mostly systemic. For example, energy costs and reliability for industry are still high compared to many competitors, even with government efforts like the Supercharger Relief Package.
Energy costs, right. Always a big factor for manufacturing.
A huge factor. And planning and grid delays severely impact the ability to build new factories and data centers. We talked about the grid connections. Well, connection and planning reform needs to translate into actual connection dates, firm timelines, not just more consultations and promises. Businesses need certainty. The capital markets plumbing is also crucial. The Financial Conduct Authorities, the FCA's 2024-25 listing rules simplification is a step.
What does that simplification involve broadly?
Things like aiming for a single segment for listings, making the main market more accessible, and having friendlier dual-class share structures, which founders often like as it helps them retain control. It's about making London more attractive compared to, say, NASDAQ.
Okay, trying to make it easier, more appealing to list in London.
Correct. But it needs some flagship tech and biotech IPOs to actually happen under these new rules to truly prove London's cost of capital is competitive, and public procurement. Government buying things. It remains underused as a scale customer.
How so? Give me an example.
Well, the government could be a much bigger buyer for frontier compute power, or for defense software like Erendite's connective tissue, or for platforms to run large-scale NHS clinical trials. That provides crucial early revenue and validation. The House of Lords 2025 report was quite blunt about the UK's incubator economy risk.
Incubator economy.
Yeah.
Meaning good at starting things but not growing them.
Precisely. And they mention the spaghetti of schemes founders must navigate, basically a confusing, often fragmented maze of grants, loans, and support programs that can actually stifle scaling rather than helping it.
Right, so a complex landscape to navigate for founders. This is closer more than just a mindset issue then. It seems deeply rooted in the system. So if Britain is to truly realize its potential and move beyond being just this incubator economy, what does a sharper, more actionable playbook look like, beyond just, telling everyone to think bigger?
Yeah, that's the critical question, isn't it? How do we bridge that gap between the incredible innovation and actually keeping that value, those scaled companies within the UK? A sharper playbook would include really concrete steps, like first, locking in sovereign compute and the power for it.
Okay, guarantee the computing resources.
Yes, guarantee access to that UK AI research resource for UK scale-ups, but crucially, pair it with firm power commitments. That means things like extending the lifetimes of existing nuclear power plants near tech hubs and really accelerating grid upgrades, and publish quarterly connection dashboards. Be transparent about progress on getting things hooked up. Accountability matters.
Transparency on grid connections. Okay. What else?
We need to make London the go-to deep tech exit venue. That means actively aiming for, say, 2 to 3 really high-profile tech and biotech IPOs under the new FCA regime, and maybe even court secondary listings from companies that might have gone public elsewhere but want a London presence too.
And the funding for that.
Expand British patient capital's late-stage mandates. Give it more firepower to anchor those bigger funding rounds here in the UK, providing that crucial later-stage funding that's often missing.
Okay, strengthen the late-stage funding pool.
And use the pension firepower. The Mansion House Compact's intent, getting pension funds to invest more in UK growth companies, needs to translate into actual defined contribution, or DC, allocations by 2026, not kicked down the road to 2030.
Unlock that big pool of domestic pension money.
Exactly. It's potentially huge. Also, targeted industrial energy relief is probably necessary in the short term for those sectors with big spillovers.
Like the chip fabs, biomanufacturing you mentioned?
Yes, and high-density compute. Give them some specific help with energy costs while the broader grid reforms are being delivered, because those industries just can't function without reliable, affordable power.
And
Finally, the government really needs to step up as a lead customer. Implement standardized contracts for things like AI safety critical software, or that defense C2 connective tissue stuff, or NHS trial platforms. Public procurement, when used strategically, can be a massive force multiplier for domestic innovation. It provides vital early revenue. It proves the tech works at scale. It's about buying British strategically to build national champions.
So what we've explored today really shows that Britain truly excels at invention. World-class research, pioneering companies, the talent is undeniable, the sparks of genius are clearly there. But the critical challenge, the delta as you put it, is that gap between the invention and the ability to really scale and retain those high-growth firms within its own borders. It feels like a disconnect between brilliant ideas and the plumbing the infrastructure needed to turn them into global champions that stay home.
That's precisely it. And it isn't merely a mindset problem that can be wished away with a bit more optimism. Fundamentally, it is a systems problem. It involves the energy infrastructure, the depth and agility of capital markets, and how public procurement actually operates on the ground. The good news, though, is that the kinds of reforms we've talked about can potentially fix this, but it requires sustained, diligent execution, driving these initiatives to clear, measurable outcomes, not just ending up as more announcements or consultations.
Right, execution is key.
Absolutely. Moving from talk to tangible results.
So the next time you hear about Britain's economic future, perhaps consider this.
Is the challenge truly about a lack of ideas, or is it more about the infrastructure? Everything from energy grids and planning systems to deep capital markets and smart government purchasing that helps those ideas take flight and, crucially, stay home. What systems do you think are most crucial for a nation to truly thrive in the global innovation race?